let's remember that the imaginary number I is equal to the square root of minus 1. And I squared is equal to minus 1. Okay, if we continue finding more powers of I, let's do that. Let's say I cubed. Well, that's equal to I squared times I. Remember, this is minus 1 times I, or minus I. And finally, let's just do I to the fourth. I to the fourth is I cubed times I. Okay, I cubed is minus I times I. So that would be minus I squared. And remember that I squared is minus 1. So this comes out to plus 1. All right, so really the two powers of I that you should remember is these two. I squared is equal to minus 1, and I to the fourth is equal to 1. If you remember those two, then it's easy to find various powers of I. In number 1, we have I to the 15th. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this as I to something that is divisible by 4 times another power of I. Okay, so 15 is not divisible by 4, so we go down to 14, also not, 13, also not, 12 is. All right, so let's go down to 12. And so we're going to write I to the 15th as I to the 12 times I cubed. All right, now we know that if I is to a power that is divisible by 4, then this is equal to 1. So we can just cross off I to a power divisible by 4 and replace it with 1. So we're down to I cubed. All right, and let's say I cubed is I squared times I. And we remember that I squared is minus 1. So I to the 15th is minus 1 times I, or negative I. Now let's look at I to the 61. Well, that's I to the 60th times I to the 1. And this is 60 is divisible by 4. All right, so this is equal to 1. So I to the 61 is just equal to I. We can express the square root of a negative number in terms of I. So the square root of negative 16 could be written as I times the square root of 16. All right, we can just think of this as the square root of minus 1 times the square root of 16. So that's where the I comes from. And the square root of 16 is 4. So this is 4I. All right, here we have the square root of negative 5, and so we're going to write this as I times the square root of 5. And 5 is not a perfect square, so we're just going to leave it like that. All right, now we want to multiply the square root of negative 7 times the square root of negative 3. And we must remember here that we first have to change over to the I format and then multiply. We cannot multiply underneath the square root. We can only do that when we have positive numbers underneath the square root. So we're going to change this to square root of negative 7 to I square root 7. And then for square root of negative 3, we have I square root 3. And now we can multiply. These are positive now, 7, 3. We can multiply underneath the root. So we have square root 21. And I times I, that's I squared. And remember that I squared is negative 1. So here we get negative the square root of 21.